had just gone through a pretty rough divorce a few months ago. For the brief 2 years that my ex and I were married, most of our nights ended up turning into shouting matches and insults. We were always so loud. We had gotten several noise complaints and an eventual ultimatum that we would be thrown out of the building. Anyway, we ended the whole thing and she got the most of everything. The house belonged to her family, along with most of everything in it. She let me only have my clothes, some photos, and my dog, Riley. I was short on money at the time. Luckily, a friend of mine let me stay in his home for as long as I needed. While I was there, I was looking for a better paying job to get my life back on track. My job search led me to an opening for a campus security guard position at the local community college. I arrived at the interview to learn that this was a job for the night shift. I wasn't too sure about taking the job at first, but my bills and my growing debts weren't going to pay themselves off. Needless to say, I started the next night. The campus itself was a decent size, both in terms of the area and the number of students. The core campus includes 14 educational and auxiliary buildings. The security office was by the south entrance of the college, situated on the second floor of the parking garage. My task every night was to complete 2 full searches around campus, checking all the buildings and monitoring the security cameras. My shift would start at 9:30 at night and go through 6 o'clock in the morning, by which time I'd take the bus home. The job itself wasn't too bad. I kind of developed a friendship between James and Darnell, since there was a brief period of time our shifts would overlap. By the time they both left, it would be midnight for me and I'd be alone on campus. It's so surreal how such a place that's bustling and full of students can quickly empty out and turn silent. When my shift starts, there's usually a few cars left in the lot for those who took evening classes. Some instructors and other staff would sometimes work extra late, but those instances were rare. In short, my interaction with other people besides my coworkers was almost non-existent. Sometimes on break or in between circuits, if it stayed quiet on campus, I'd read a book or listen to spooky stories on my iPhone. After listening, I would start to feel a little bit creeped out for being in a campus all alone after dark, but I got used to it. It killed the boredom until I started my next circuit. I wouldn't find much of anything out of the ordinary, aside from the random object left behind by a student, which I would bring back to the lost and found. I just had to make sure no one else was hanging around after closing. After coming back, I would check the security camera footage in case I missed something. There are a few screens recording the specific spots with the most activity during the day. One for each parking lot, one for each floor in all the buildings, and one for the administrative office. I got decent pay every couple of weeks. After a while, I moved out of my friend's house and got a small apartment. I was saving up for a used car. I felt like my luck was starting to turn around finally. Then I had the scariest experience of my life. I was left alone around midnight, like always. The campus was absolutely deserted at this time, like normal. It was summer during this time, so the night was pretty warm. I felt like I was building a bit of sweat in my security uniform while doing my first circuit. I came back to the security office after finding nothing of note and checked the camera feed. I found nothing in any of the screens until I checked this one for the south lot, near the office. While the screen was small, I could discern the moving of a large shadow across one of the lamp posts. It was doing nothing but moving back and forth across the light. The shadow looked too large to be some small bird or animal. I deduced it had to be someone parked off-screen so I couldn't visibly see them. I went out there to check things out, but found nothing there. If it were a person just fucking around, they would have left a sign of their presence. There was nothing left behind. I didn't hear a car driving off or any noise for that matter. I scoped the rest of the south lot to find the source of the shadow. Still nothing. I sighed in annoyance at the thought of some jackass deciding to waste my time. Nothing else happened the rest of the night. I got used to sleeping during the day, but all I could afford to sleep on was a cheap couch that was anything but comfortable. It was rare that I got a full 8 hours of sleep on it, and to top it off, the AC unit had crapped out. My cheap apartment had gotten warmer, making it much harder to sleep. I got to the college at the start of my shift with maybe 4 or 5.5 hours of sleep. I had coffee, but the caffeine boost would only last for so long. With it being extremely late, my office feeling cool, and it being quiet everywhere, I started to feel drowsy. Sleeping on the job wasn't allowed, of course, but every now and then I let myself have a brief nap to refresh myself. So I set my head on the desk and fell asleep instantly. I was later jolted awake. A feeling of something very wrong switched my tired mind on alert and woke me up. I rubbed my eyes and checked the monitors to see if anything was up. I looked at the camera feed for the south lot and my eyes narrowed. Beneath one of the lamplights, a person was standing, not doing anything, just being very still. I couldn't make out any details, but this person had long black hair and looked very tall for almost reaching the light. I looked at the bottom of the screen and found the camera was still recording. Whoever the camera was showing was still there. The feeling that jolted me awake intensified, and I was aware of myself shaking. A chill colder than the air inside the office crept up my neck. My body was reacting to some sort of danger the image was giving off. Still, a weird person on security footage was not an excuse to not do my job. I got to the lot in under a minute, and I saw that the person was still standing under the lamplight, just being dead still. Their back was facing toward me, and their head seemed to be bowed forward. As I approached closer and tried to get their attention, I found that the trespasser was very tall and lanky and was wearing a dirty white dress. I called to her again, asking if she needed help, but didn't respond. She just kept standing like a statue where she was. I reached out to touch her and my hand retracted back from the burning sensation her skin gave off, as if she were on fire. I cursed and shook my hand to cool it off, and the lady moved for the first time. Her head lifted upward as if finally acknowledging I was there. She turned around and I started to trace backwards. Her body was humanoid, but she had the head of a goat or a ram. The fur was pitch black, contrasting her pale skin and white dress. The eyes were red like burning embers and strands of flesh hung from its curved horns. As my backwards walk sped up, I could hear it give off a deep, thunderous roar. I ran back towards the office, and I swear I could hear the thing sprinting after me. I ran faster than I ever have in my life, and I barricaded myself in the security office. For good measure, I switched off the lights inside and called 911. I told them that something was on campus, and they sent someone over. I hung up and strained my ears to hear any noise outside my office. It was hard to notice anything other than the pounding of my heart working overtime. It felt like an eternity before I heard the knocking at the door. The cops notified their presence and I slowly opened the door.
Police!
They questioned me about what I called for. When I told them, they looked at me as if I was a mental patient or a drug user. I played the footage back for them, and there the thing was. At the very least, they weren't going to arrest me for making a fake emergency call. But with the trespasser gone, there wasn't much they could do. They left and I was once again alone. This time I was very afraid. Not that I was alone, but afraid that I wasn't alone, and that thing was still out there. I wasn't taking any chances. I waited in that office and kept the door locked until the end of my shift. I left a note saying I resigned immediately and I never went back. Hey guys, just wanted to take a quick second and say thank you for all the likes, comments, subscribes, the feedback, and kind messages. I really appreciate it, and it encourages me to keep making more content for you guys. I know originally I said I was going to post about 100 videos this year, but I feel more motivated to go even beyond that because of you guys. So if you're new to the channel or haven't done so yet, please hit that subscribe button and that notification bell to get updates on my newest videos. Thanks again.